I hid my wealth from my son to test him. But when I came to him for dinner as a poor man, William Yates, https www.youtube.com watch v =zgfk_4 VIUAI I concealed my fortune from my son to test his character. But when I showed up for dinner as a broke man, I concealed my fortune from my son to test his character. But when I showed up for dinner as a broke man, I concealed from my son that my monthly salary reached $60,000. I lived modestly, so he never suspected. On Thanksgiving, he invited me to dinner with his wife's parents. I wanted to observe how they would treat a poor man, pretending to be a bankrupt elder. You won't believe what unfolded the moment I stepped across their threshold. Before we proceed, please subscribe to the channel and comment the current time and your location. The tea kettle whistled as my phone vibrated on the kitchen counter. I set down the audit report I had been examining and glanced at the screen. Ethan, I answered. So, yeah. Anyway, Dad. His voice interrupted his own complaint, as if I had cut in. Lila's parents want you to join us for Thanksgiving dinner at their house Thursday at 6. Wrapped my fingers around the warm mug. That is very kind of them. I would be delighted to attend. A pause followed. Ethan had not anticipated my easy acceptance. Right. Well, good. Through the phone, I heard the familiar sounds of my own home. The home I purchased 25 years ago. The home where Ethan and Lila had resided rent-free for 9 years while saving. The television murmured softly in the background. Ethan cleared his throat. So, we found this house in Lake Oswego. He continued, his tone shifting to that familiar stress I recognized. Perfect size. Excellent neighborhood. $900,000. The issue is the down payment. We are short about $180,000. Banks are strict these days. You know. I surveyed my modest apartment. 1 bedroom. Clean but sparse. Furniture from thrift stores. Carefully selected. That is a substantial amount. Yeah. Well, Ethan's voice carried a shrug. Not like you would have that kind of cash on hand anyway. My jaw clenched. I remained silent. Then Lila's voice cut in. Not intended for me, but loud enough. Just tell the old man we need money. Wait, never mind. He's probably living on Social Security or something. Ethan did not defend me. He did not pause. So anyway, Dad, you will come Thursday. 6 sharp. I closed my eyes briefly. Government Accountability Office. Senior Auditor. 60,000 monthly salary. Portfolio worth $2.8 million. The numbers raced through my mind as they did each quarter when I reviewed statements. 22 years ago, I made a choice. Raise Ethan without the cushion of wealth. Let him build character. Learn self-reliance. Watch him become a man who earned his path. The irony stung. I will be there. Ethan. Should I bring anything, just yourself? Do not worry about it. A pause. Actually, maybe do not park on the street. The Harrisons have a nice neighborhood. Park around the corner or something. I opened my eyes, stared at my reflection in the darkened window overlooking Seattle's downtown streets. The man gazing back was 64, fit, methodical. A man who spent decades analyzing financial misconduct, spotting patterns others missed. I will not be late, I said, my voice deliberately steady. Thank you for the invitation. Yeah, bye. He hung up without waiting for a reply. I set the phone down carefully. The apartment settled into silence around me. The hum of the refrigerator, distant traffic, my own breathing, strategic poverty. I had once called it in my thoughts. This place cost me $1,000 a month when I could afford 12 times that. The used Tacoma in the parking garage instead of the BMW I considered. Thrift store suits and pharmacy reading glasses. Also, Ethan would learn what it meant to work for something. I walked to the bookshelf and lifted a framed photo. Ethan at 8, gap-toothed and grinning, holding a certificate from his school science fair. Best dad, he had written on the back in careful pencil. I remembered that day, how proud he had been, how hard he worked on that project. When had that boy become the man who told me to park around the corner? I set the photo down and moved to my desk. Years of auditing trained me for documentation. I opened my laptop, created a new file, titled it simply Thanksgiving 2025. Date November 17th, Sunday evening, 7:45 p.m. Call from Ethan Harrison. Duration approximately 5 minutes. Content Thanksgiving invitation. Indirect request for $180,000. Dismissive comments. I typed it all. Fingers steady on the keys. What was said. What was implied. What I overheard. Lila's voice. Ethan's silence. The casual cruelty of assuming I had nothing, because I appeared to have nothing. An audit always began with initial evidence. The first anomaly suggesting deeper issues. This was my first entry. I saved the document and stood, walked to my closet, and opened the door. The suits I wore to the office hung on the left. Tailored. Professional. Fitting for a GS-15 senior auditor. On the right. Pushed to the back. The older clothes. The worn jacket I bought on sale 16 years ago. The shoes needing new heels. I needed to see the truth before deciding anything. Needed to know who my son had become when he thought his father had nothing to offer. My hand moved past the good suits, reached for the back of the rack. Thursday was 3 days away. I would attend this dinner. I would play the role they assigned me. The poor, embarrassing father who could not park on their nice street. And I would watch, listen, document, then decide whether my son was worth saving. I pulled out the old jacket, held it to the light. A small stain on the lapel I never removed. A button slightly mismatched where I replaced it. Perfect. I laid it across the chair in my bedroom and returned to the window. Seattle's lights stretched below. Tiny lives in tiny apartments. Everyone carrying their own calculations of worth and dignity. My phone sat silent on the counter. The tea had gone cold. I thought about that 8-year-old boy with the science fair certificate. Wondered when he stopped seeing me and started seeing only what I appeared to lack. Thursday would answer that question. I opened my closet again and looked at the suits I never wore around Ethan. Then I pushed them aside and reached for the back of the rack. The old jacket smelled faintly of cedar. Monday morning light filtered through my apartment windows as I examined the fabric worn at the elbows. The color faded from navy to something closer to slate. I had worn it to a budget meeting 10 years ago, back before promotions, before salary increases built my portfolio into something substantial. It would serve perfectly. I hung it on the backs of my desk chair and dressed in my usual work attire. 45 minutes later, I was in my Tacoma, deliberately taking the route past my real house. The house stood in a quiet Seattle suburb, modest by neighborhood standards, but solid. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, built in 2000. I bought it for $450,000. Current value neared $750,000. The lawn needed mowing. Ethan's Accord sat in the driveway next to Lila's Audi. My house, their home, 9 years ago. Newlywed Ethan had called. Dad, I know this is a lot, but could Lila and I stay at your place a few months? Just until we save for our own house. I said yes immediately. Of course. Son. Stay as long as you need. It is your home too. We will pay rent. Obviously, he added. Do not worry about that. Save your money for your future. 9 years of saving. 9 years rent-free in a house worth over $750,000. And still, they were $180,000 short. I drove on, mind calculating numbers like discrepancies in federal reports. Ethan's job at the software firm paid $80,000 annually. Lila managed a yoga studio, probably and likely earned $60,000. Combined income $12,000 monthly. 0 rent. 0 mortgage. 9 years meant 1,296,000 had flowed through their accounts. Where had it gone? The Audi in my driveway likely answered part. At the GAO office downtown. I settled into routine. Files spread across my desk. Contractor overcharges. Grant misallocations. Endless creativity of those hiding money. I built a career following funds that evaded detection. William, heading out early for Thanksgiving. Marcus from the next cubicle leaned over, coffee mug in hand. Taking Thursday and Friday off. Dinner with my son's family. That is nice. Sarah is proud to have you visit. I glanced up. Marcus met me 11 years ago when I joined this division, watched me rise, saw commendations, knew my reputation for thoroughness. He had no idea about the apartment, the Tacoma, the constructed poverty outside these walls. We will see, I said, allowing a slight smile. That evening, back in my apartment, I retrieved an old leather wallet from my desk drawer. Inside, behind expired cards, I found what I sought, a photo from Ethan's 9th birthday. He made me a card, construction paper and marker, best dad in crayon across the front. 22 years I kept this secret, 22 years watching him build his way, believing he earned everything himself. I thought I taught independence, self-reliance, value of work without safety net. Maybe I taught him to disdain anyone perceived as less. I returned the photo, closed the drawer. Wednesday evening. My phone rang again. Ethan, confirming you are still coming tomorrow. 6 o'clock, the Harrison Place in Bellevue. I have the address. I said, I will be there. And Dad, his voice shifted uncomfortable. Maybe dress nicely. I mean, as nice as you can. I looked at the old suit across my chair. I will wear my best suit. Ethan, right. Okay. See you tomorrow. The relief in his voice cut deeper than Lila's overheard insult. After he hung up, I sat at my desk and added to my documentation file. November 19th, Wednesday, 8:20 p.m. Call from Ethan Harrison. Content confirmation of dinner. Request to dress as nicely as possible. Implied concern about my appearance before in-laws. I saved the file and inspected my Tacoma in the garage. 16 years old, 200,000 miles, but meticulously maintained. The GAO lot held Mercedes and Teslas of colleagues at my level. I drove a car worth perhaps 4,000. The dissonance stopped bothering me years ago. I cleaned the interior, checked tire pressure, ensured nothing drew attention. Not too shabby to insult, but clearly the vehicle of a man without resources. Tomorrow I would drive this car to a mansion in Bellevue, park around the corner as instructed, walk to dinner in my 11-year-old suit, and watch my son. I memorized the pattern now, could recite it like case evidence. 8 years ago, first dinner with the Harrisons. Charles asked what I did. I am an auditor with a government agency. Public sector. He chuckled, shared a glance with his wife. Evelyn, well, someone has to do it. Must be rewarding in other ways. Evelyn smiled with practiced sympathy. Ethan mentioned you live quite simply. Very admirable in this materialistic age. Ethan jumped in quickly. Dad has always been about minimalism, life philosophy. You know, not a lie, but not truth either. A reframing letting them maintain their narrative. Poor William making best of limited circumstances. So admirable he does not let it bother him. I said nothing to correct. Let misunderstanding stand. I believed then Ethan knew better. That my son understood difference between choosing simplicity and having it forced. But years clarified. Casual dismissals. Apologetic tone mentioning me to friends. Spacing visits to my apartment. Embarrassed to enter building without doorman. Tomorrow would be final test. Thursday morning. I dressed with audit precision. Old suit pressed. Scuffed shoes buffed to hide wear. I looked in mirror. Man doing best with limited means. Performance complete. I locked apartment. Walked to car. Harrison House 45 minutes away in Bellevue, one of Seattle's wealthier suburbs. Charles made money in tech real estate. Evelyn's family had old money predating Washington statehood. They built house announcing status from street. By 7 tonight, I would know if my son was worth saving. Tacoma engine turned smoothly. I backed out, drove through downtown toward highway, traffic light. Everyone rushing to Thanksgiving tables, family gatherings. I wondered how many were disguised tests. Highway stretched. Morning sun glinting off hood. Phone silent in cup holder. Suit scratchy against neck. In mind. I reviewed framework. 40 years developing auditor approach to truth. Establish baseline. Document evidence. Follow pattern. Draw conclusions from facts. Never assumptions. Tonight I gathered final data points. Then I would know what man my son became. Neighborhoods transformed as I drove east. Modest apartments gave way to sprawling homes. Then mansions with gates. Bellevue announced wealth from every corner. Manicured lawns. Luxury vehicles. Streets named after trees costing more to maintain than most earned monthly. Harrison Estate sat on corner lot, imposing by local standards. 2.8 million, I estimated from footprint and location. Circular driveway, 4-car garage, Mediterranean landscaping. Black Range Rover occupied drive next to white BMW SUV. I parked Tacoma on street 3 houses down as Ethan suggested. In rear view, I straightened worn tie. Store-bought apple pie sat on passenger seat. $8 at supermarket. I picked it up. Walked toward house. Curtain moved in front window. Someone watching. Ethan appeared in doorway before I reached it. Expression tight. Dad, you made it. Traffic was light. I held up pie. I brought dessert. He glanced at plastic container. Then away. That is thoughtful. Come in. Charles Harrison filled doorway behind Ethan. 67. Silver hair. Expensive casual wear costing more than my outfit. Smile practiced. Professional. Perfected over decades of deals. William. Come in. Come in. Handshake firm. Territorial. Still driving that old Toyota, they last forever. Do they not Japanese engineering? It serves its purpose. Evelyn appeared beside husband. Polished blonde. Jewelry catching light. How practical. Ethan says you have always been about practicality. Lila stood behind, face rigid with embarrassment and contempt. More like necessity. Mom. They ushered me into living room belonging in magazine. Vaulted ceilings. Modern furniture. Original artwork. Everything positioned to impress. Charles gestured to leather chair in corner away from main seating. Drink excellent bourbon. Or something simpler. Water is fine. Water it is. He poured himself 3 fingers of amber from crystal decanter. So William, government work, some agency downtown. Government Accountability Office. I audit federal spending. Charles laughed. Booming sound demanding attention. Ah, bureaucrat. Well, someone must do it. I suppose. Pay must be adequate. It meets my needs. Evelyn settled on sofa, crossing legs. Such important work. I am sure public service is admirable when people lack other options. I sipped water, said nothing. Ethan sat beside Lila on love seat, posture rigid, avoiding my gaze. Tell me, Charles continued, swirling bourbon. What happened? You must have had ambitions when younger. Plans for more. I chose my path deliberately. Interesting choice. Tone suggested otherwise. I went opposite. Started in sales at 23, owned first firm at 32, now 4 locations, multi-million revenue. Different philosophies, I suppose. Dinner served in dining room with table seating 14. Meal catered. Turkey carved by staff. Sides in warming dishes. Wine costing more per bottle than my monthly utilities. They placed me at far end. Cheap folding chair for extra guest. Store-bought pie sat on sideboard. ignored beside professional desserts. Charles dominated conversation, gesturing with fork, refilling glass repeatedly. Just closed deal on 4th location last month. Ethan, you should work for me. Real money in tech real estate. Not like that software stuff. I'm doing fine in software. Charles. Evelyn dabbed lips with linen napkin. Better than some family examples. Certainly. She glanced at me. Meaning clear. Ethan has always been capable, I said quietly. Lila's fork clinked against plate. Capable, but held back. Some inherit advantages. Ethan built everything himself. Irony would be funny if not painful. Ethan inherited house 9 years rent-free. Every advantage I provided without revealing resources. And still they believed narrative. Must be difficult. Evelyn continued. Making ends meet on government salary. Do you have savings? Retirement? I am adequately prepared. Charles leaned forward. But not enough to help major expenses. I imagine. Ethan mentioned you found house. 900,000. Beautiful area. Lake Oswego. Need what? 180 for down payment. Ethan nodded. Yes, sir. We are working on it. What about family help? Charles turned to me. William, can you contribute? Moment crystallized? I felt Ethan's eyes, waiting for me to confirm I had nothing. That is significant sum, I said. Thought so. Charles smiled triumphant. No offense. But government work does not build wealth. Does it cannot squeeze blood from stone? Ethan sat silent. Not a word in my defense. Not token protest against condescension. Lila set down wine glass. We learned to be realistic about possible sources. Well then. Charles stood, walked to Ethan's chair, placed hand on shoulder. Tell you what. Evelyn and I will provide 180,000 down payment gift. Cannot have our daughter wait forever for help, clearly not coming elsewhere. Ethan's face transformed. Charles, incredibly generous. Thank you. Lila rose to hug father. Thank you, Daddy. This is why I am grateful for real family support. Evelyn beamed. Some families help children succeed. That is what parents do when able. I watched my son accept another man as benefactor. Watched him show more gratitude to Charles in 30 seconds than me in 9 years. Tacoma insult, parking instruction, cheap chair, all forgivable. But not this silence. Not acceptance of my humiliation, without single word of defense. That is very generous of you both. I said, tone perfectly neutral. We moved through dessert, their elaborate pastries, not my pie. Conversation continued around me like I was furniture. Charles' business successes, Evelyn charity board, Lila studio expansion plans. Ethan contributed enthusiastically, animated in ways I rarely saw. At 9, I stood. Thank you for meal, I should go. Charles barely looked up. Early night? Long drive back to where do you live these days downtown? Small place. Cozy, I'm sure. Evelyn smiled dismissive. Good night. William. Ethan rose halfway, settled back. Bye, Dad. Not let me walk you out, not drive safely. Just quick dismissal. Eager return to real family. Goodbye, Ethan. I paused at doorway. Enjoy your new house. I walked to Tacoma alone. No one accompanied. No one watched from window. I sat in driver's seat. Key in ignition. Not turning. Hands steady. Breathing even. Auditor in me organized evening into categories. Documented evidence. Built case file. 9 years rent-free in my house. Tonight, complete betrayal. Charles' hand on Ethan's shoulder. Claiming him. I started engine. Pulled from curb. In rear view. Harrison Mansion blazed with light and laughter. I had seen enough. Drive back took longer. I stopped twice. Once at gas station to sit under fluorescent light. Once at Park Overlook where Seattle downtown glittered below. Mind working. Sorting. Categorizing. Not anger. Something colder. I reached apartment at 11:15. Building quiet. Most asleep. I unlocked door. Set keys in bowl by entrance. Move to desk. Documentation first. Always. I opened a laptop. Pulled up file, started Sunday. Added new entry, November 20th, Thursday, 6 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Location Harrison Residence, Bellevue. Present Charles Harrison. Evelyn Harrison. Ethan Harrison. Lila Harrison. William Yates. I typed everything. Charles comments about car. Evelyn questions about finances. Lila contempt. Ethan silence. Down payment offer. Ethan gratitude. Not to me, never to me, but man who diminished everything I was. Words filled 4 pages. Clinical, precise, like audit report on financial malfeasance. When finished, past midnight, I saved document, backed up to 4 drives, sat back in chair. 22 years living beneath means, teaching Ethan independence. 9 years free housing while he saved nothing. Tonight, complete betrayal. I pulled financial software. Government Accountability Office salary, $60,000 monthly. 25 years at level. 22 before at lower grades. Total career earnings over 45 years. Conservatively managed. Checking $140,000. Savings $220,000. Investment portfolio $2.1 million. 401k $890,000. Total liquid $3.35 million. House where Ethan lived, rent-free $750,000 current value. Mortgage paid 13 years ago. Total assets $4.1 million. I stared at numbers. $4.1 million my son thought did not exist. $4.1 million could have prevented tonight humiliation with single sentence. But I wanted to know who he really was. Now I did. Friday morning arrived with gray drizzle. I made coffee, sat at kitchen table, opened laptop again. First search, Washington inheritance law. Disinheritance children. Results clear. Washington allowed complete disinheritance. No requirement to leave anything to adult children. Properly executed will with explicit language would suffice. Second search, Washington eviction law. Family members, more complex. 30 days notice minimum. Legal occupation 9 years might create complications. I would need attorney. Third search, transfer on death deed, Washington. Perfect. TOD deed would transfer ownership upon death directly to beneficiaries, bypassing probate, revocable any time while alive. Ethan would not inherit house automatically. I could name anyone, any organization, any charity. He would have nothing. I spent afternoon organizing documents, property deed, tax records, financial statements, 9 years documentation showing Ethan lived rent-free, paying 0 toward mortgage, utilities, maintenance. His tax returns I helped file until 4 years ago, showing substantial earnings. Drizzle intensified. I made lunch, barely tasted, returned to laptop. By evening, I had framework, 2-pronged, legally sound. 1. New will explicitly disinheriting Ethan with clear language explaining why. Everything to charity, perhaps organizations supporting foster children or educational opportunities for underprivileged youth, kids who actually needed help, unlike my son who squandered 9 years' advantages. 2. Transfer on death deed for house, also to charity, or sold with proceeds to charity. Ethan would need to vacate within 30 days of my death. But first, I needed him out while alive. Saturday morning. I dressed casually, drove past my house. Ethan's Accord in driveway, Lila's Audi beside, lights on in kitchen. They were home, probably discussing new house, celebrating Charles' generosity. My house, my equity. My gift turned weapon against me. I drove back to apartment, called colleague who endured messy divorce. Marcus, it is William. Need attorney recommendation. Real estate and inheritance law. Everything okay, planning ahead. Someone thorough. Daniel Reed, handled my settlement. Does not mess around. Want his number, I wrote it down. Opened email. Daniel Reed, website professional. 42 years experience. Estate planning. Property law, complex family situations. Office downtown Seattle. Walking distance from apartment. I drafted email carefully. Subject consultation request. Estate planning and property matter. Mr. Reed. Seeking legal counsel regarding estate planning and property matter involving family occupation. I am 66-year-old federal employee with substantial assets and real property. Need comprehensive will, transfer on death deed. Address current occupation of primary residence by family members. Documentation prepared. Ready to proceed quickly. Please advise availability for initial consultation. Regards. William Yates. I read twice. Checked typos. Hit send. Email departed with quiet sound. I sat back. Coffee cooling on desk. Outside window. Seattle moved through Saturday routine. People shopping. Eating. Living ordinary lives. I spent 45 years building financial security. 22 years hiding it to teach son independence. 9 years providing free housing while he saved nothing. Learned to despise me for appearing to have nothing. Last night, he sat silent while another man paid for his future. This morning, I started process removing every advantage I ever gave him. My phone sat quiet on desk. Ethan had not called, not texted, probably did not think how I got home, if I was hurt, if I ate beyond dinner I barely touched. I opened financial software again, looked at numbers one more time. 4.1 million. 45 years, careful planning. None would ever reach Ethan. I pulled documentation file. 4 parts now. Chronological, detailed, damning. Printed it. 4 copies. Placed in separate folders. 1 for records. 1 for attorney. 1 for backup. 1 for safe. By noon, I organized everything attorney would need. Property deed. 9 years utility bills showing sole ownership. Tax returns. Complete financial picture. Plan simple. Legally airtight. Morally justified. Ethan made his choice. Now I would make mine. I closed laptop. Looked around small apartment. Space I chose. Life I built. Resources I controlled. Monday. I would likely hear from Daniel Reed. We would schedule consultation. By next week, documents drafted. Ethan could have his new house. Charles' generous gift. Life he chose with real family. He just would not have mine. Weekend passed in careful preparation. I gathered bank statements, property deeds, retirement summaries, organized chronologically, cross-referenced by type. When Daniel Reed assistant called Monday afternoon with appointment Wednesday morning, I was ready. Wednesday arrived cold and clear. Daniel Reed office occupied 3 floors, glass-fronted building near Pioneer Square. Professional but not ostentatious. Leather chairs, organized shelving, quiet efficiency focused on substance. Daniel met me in conference room. Mid-40s, graying temples, direct handshake. Mr. Yates. Thank you for coming. Understand you need estate planning assistance. I set leather portfolio on table, opened it. Need to disinherit son completely and permanently. Can Washington law accomplish this? Yes, it can. Washington does not require parents leave anything to adult children. He sat across, pen ready. Tell me situation. I removed documentation. First handwritten notes from Thanksgiving. Then bank statements showing accounts. Property deed for house. Current will leaving everything to Ethan. Retirement summaries. I arranged in organized stacks between us. My son showed me who he is when he thought I had nothing. Now certain of his character. He will receive nothing. Daniel read methodically. Occasionally noted. Asked clarifying questions. When he reached financial summary, eyebrows lifted slightly. You have substantial assets. House alone worth $750,000. Paid off 13 years ago. Son lived there rent-free 9 years while accumulating 0 savings. Learning embarrassed by me. I see. Daniel set deed aside. Want this airtight, no loopholes. No reversal opportunities. He pulled legal pad. Outlined options for house. Explained 2 approaches. Life estate or transfer on death deed. TOD cleaner. faster, harder to challenge. Property automatically transfers to chosen beneficiary upon death, bypassing probate entirely. For liquid assets, new will straightforward. Name any beneficiary. Include explicit disinheritance language. Who receives estate? Daniel asked. I considered over weekend. No family alternatives. No siblings. Parents long deceased. Want money to go to children who actually need it. Kids from families without resources. Seattle Education Fund provides scholarships to low-income students. Reputable, established, perfect for estate gifts. That works. Children who have nothing will benefit from what my son took for granted. Daniel allowed slight smile, certain poetry to that choice. There is justice to it. He outlined timeline. Draft new will 1 week. Prepare TOD deed 1 week. Notarization required with Laura Bennett. Reputable notary in building. Property appraisal recommended with Thomas Clark. Licensed appraiser. Total timeline 2 weeks to complete all documents. Once executed. Daniel emphasized. Extremely difficult to challenge. Federal position proves competence, but recommend additional documentation. Dates, conversations, reasons for disinheritance. Also consider cognitive assessment from physician. Creates medical record of competence at signing. I nodded. Annual federal health assessments current. All normal, no cognitive issues. Perfect. Bring records to signing. Over next 2 weeks. I became familiar with process. Daniel sent drafts for review. I read each page carefully. Years analyzing complex federal documents served well. I requested specific language changes, clarifications, additional provisions. Property appraisal required coordination. I called Ethan Tuesday evening. Ethan, having house appraised next Tuesday. Appraiser needs access. Appraised why insurance purposes. Routine valuation. Will you be home? No. Work. Lila might be. Seems sudden. Overdue. I will coordinate with appraiser. He will be professional and quick. Okay. I guess fine. Thomas Clark conducted appraisal on schedule. I accompanied him. My property after all. Ethan not home. Lila left for studio. Walking through house felt strange. Ethan furniture. Lila decorative choices. Their lives built in my space without payment or appreciation. Thomas measured rooms, photographed features, noted improvements. Appraisal returned $750,000 fair market value. By mid-December, all documents ready. Daniel scheduled signing Wednesday afternoon. Laura Bennett notary office occupied corner of law firm second floor. Small desk, official seal on wall, filing cabinets of recorded documents. 2 witnesses, firm staff, stood against wall. Laura reviewed federal ID badge, verified identity. She slid new will across desk. Mr. Yates, need to verify you understand these documents. This will revokes all prior wills. Directs entire estate to Seattle Education Fund. Do you understand completely? And this deed transfers property to same fund upon death. Your son currently residing there is not beneficiary. You understand this? I do. That is my intention. Very well. Please sign here. Here, initial here. I signed with deliberate strokes. Pen moved smoothly across pages. Then TOD deed. Laura applied seal. Stamp made definitive sound echoing in quiet room. She handed documents. These now in effect. TOD deed needs county recording. Next morning, I walked recorded deed to King County Recording Office. Wanted to see entered into public record myself. Clerk processed efficiently, provided stamped copy with official number. I held document, red stamp. Real now. Permanent. House would never be Ethan's. That afternoon, I returned to Daniel's office for final meeting. All documents executed and recorded. He confirmed, estate plan now in effect. When planned to inform son soon, after holidays. Want him to enjoy one more Christmas believing he gets millions. Daniel leaned back. Remarkably restrained. Most clients act immediately. Not acting from rage, acting from certainty. Few more weeks change nothing. He nodded. Call if need anything. And Mr. Yates, you did this correctly. Documentation thorough. Legal foundation solid. I left office carrying copies of every document. Originals filed in Daniel's secure storage with additional copies in apartment safe. Christmas came and went. Ethan sent brief text. Generic holiday wishes. Nothing personal. No invitation to celebrate. No acknowledgement of Thanksgiving that changed everything. I spent Christmas organizing files, reviewing documentation, preparing for next. By early January, I was ready. I texted Ethan early January. Brief. Neutral. Need to speak with you. Coffee Wednesday afternoon. Downtown cafe on 4th. Response came hours later. Sure, what is this about better in person? Wednesday arrived gray with rain. I reached cafe first. Selected corner table near window. Ordered black coffee. Watched street until Ethan appeared. Walking quickly. Shoulders hunched against weather. He sat across. Confusion evident. What is going on? You sounded serious. I sipped coffee. Let moments settle. Want to tell you about something I did 22 years ago. Decision about raising you. Ethan frowned. Okay. When you were 16, I earned approximately $250,000 annually as senior federal auditor. Substantial investment portfolio. Significant savings. Real assets. Could have given you anything. Private schools. New car. College paid in full. His expression shifted, uncertain now. Instead, I chose to live modestly. Let you believe we had limited resources. Wanted you to learn independence, self-reliance, value of work. I set down cup. Wanted to see who you would become without obvious wealth cushion. Ethan's face paled. What are you saying I currently have 1.4 million savings and investments, 900,000 retirement accounts, own house where you live, 750,000 paid off, total assets approximately 4.1 million. Color drained completely from his face. You are joking. Telling you truth I hid for 2 decades. Poverty you were embarrassed by. Strategic, modest apartment, old car, worn suits, choices, not necessities. His hands gripped table edge. Why would you to see who you would become? To understand character when you thought I had nothing. I kept voice level, professional. Thanksgiving showed everything I needed. Thanksgiving, that was you accepting another man money without defending father. That was you sitting silent while Harrison's humiliated me. That was you telling me park around corner because my car embarrassing. Ethan's mouth opened. Closed. I did not. You did. And I documented it. Every word, every silence, every betrayal moment. I removed envelope from jacket. 2 weeks ago. Completed new estate documents. Will disinheriting you completely. Transfer on death deed, removing you as house beneficiary. Everything goes to Seattle Education Fund. Scholarships for children from low-income families. I slid envelope across. These copies, originals executed, notarized, recorded with King County, legally binding. Ethan stared at envelope like poison. You cannot. I can. Washington law allows complete disinheritance adult children. Daniel Reed, my attorney, insured airtight. You showed me who you are. Ethan. Now receive inheritance you earned. Nothing. His hands shook, opening envelope. Scanned documents. Face transformed. Shock. Disbelief. Dawning horror. This because of Thanksgiving. Because I did not defend you enough. That is insane. Because of 9 years rent-free in my house. Because every dismissive comment. Every embarrassed glance. Every moment you treated me like failure. Thanksgiving not cause. It was confirmation. Dad, please. I lived in $1,000 apartment while you enjoyed $750,000 of my equity. Drove 16-year-old Tacoma while you and Lila accumulated nothing despite combined income exceeding 1.3 million over 9 years. You had every advantage, learned only contempt. Ethan's breathing quickened. I did not know. How could I know if you never told me? Your ignorance of resources does not excuse treatment of who you thought I was. You accepted Charles' money over relationship with father you believed poor. That tells everything about your values. I can change. You are 64 years old. Ethan, I am 34. Slip registered. Wrong generation. I was 66. Ethan was 34. Stress affected precision. You are 34, I corrected. Old enough to know better. Old enough to show basic respect regardless of perceived finances. He pushed back from table, stood, sat again. Phone buzzed. He ignored. Buzzed again. I need to... He answered, not now. Lila. Her voice carried across table. Shrill, demanding. Could not make out words, but tone clear. Ethan's expression crumbled. He just told me he has 4.1 million. No, I did not know. Of course not. He listened. Face greening. He already did it. Legal documents recorded everything. Another pause. I do not know. Let me. She was screaming now. Actual screaming. Ethan pulled phone from ear, wincing. I need to go home, he said finally. We need to talk about this. Nothing to discuss. Documents filed. Decision final. Lila parents. Charles knows lawyers. Let him hire them. Daniel Reed specializes in estate law. Every document prepared to withstand challenge. You can spend savings on legal fees if you want. You will lose. Ethan stood swaying slightly. How can you do this? I am your son. And you showed me exactly what that means to you. I stood as well. Straight in coat. House is mine. Money is mine. None ever yours despite 9 years free living and lifetime expectations. You made choices. Now live with them. I left cafe while he stood there. Documents scattered across table. Phone pressed to ear. Lila voice cutting through space between us. In car. I sat moment before starting engine. Across street. Through cafe window. I saw Ethan collapse back into chair. Head in hands. I started to coma. Pulled into traffic. First blow landed. Now I would wait to see how they responded. 10 days passed after cafe meeting. I returned to routine. Work, home, quiet rhythm of life. Ethan called twice. I did not answer. Then certified letter arrived requiring signature. I knew before opening. Postal worker waited while I signed pad. I thanked her. Closed door. Sat at kitchen table. Envelope thick. Formal. Bearing letterhead of Peterson and Associates. Prominent Seattle law firm known for aggressive litigation. I used letter opener rather than tearing. Inside, 14 pages legal filing. Ethan Harrison, plaintiff, versus William Yates, defendant. Contest of last will and testament. Claims of diminished capacity. Undue influence. Emotional instability evidenced by sudden disinheritance of only child. I photographed each page with phone, then called Daniel Reed. They filed. I said when he answered, expected. Can you come tomorrow morning next day? Daniel spread filing across conference table. He read completely, occasionally noting, expression unimpressed. This is Hail Mary, he said finally. Hoping intimidate into settlement. Washington law clear. Competent adults can disinherit anyone for any reason. You have medical records, employment records, documented reasoning. This will not succeed, but take time and energy. Fight completely. That is what I hoped. Let us bury them in documentation. Over next week. I provided everything Daniel requested. Security clearance renewal 7 months ago. Government background checks requiring psychological screening. Annual physical exam results. All normal. No cognitive decline. Performance reviews from GAO. Consistently excellent. Daniel compiled into Fortress of Evidence. Peterson and Associates expensive. Daniel noted. Someone with resources funding this. Charles Harrison. Ethan, father-in-law, explains aggressive approach. Used to buying outcomes. Letters started arriving second week February. Handwritten Ethan familiar script on ivory stationery. First 4 pages rambling apology. Youthful foolishness. Misunderstandings. Promises to improve. Second referenced specific memories. Teaching him to drive at 16. That father would not abandon son now. I read each completely. Filed in folder labeled Ethan February 2026. Did not respond to any. Recognized manipulation when saw it. Mid-February. Phone rang unknown number. William Yates. William Charles Harrison. Let us talk man to man. Businessman to businessman. What is your number? I switched to speaker. Started recording. My number, everyone has price. Want to leave money to charity. Fine. Name amount you want for yourself. We will settle. This not about money. Mr. Harrison. About character. Ethan failed test he did not know he was taking. Charles' voice hardened. Do not be naive. Everything about money. You just playing hard to get. 250,000. 350. You cannot buy way out of this. Goodbye. I hung up. Saved recording. Emailed to Daniel with timestamp. Third call that week came from Lila directly. First time she ever called me. William, it is Lila. Calling because think we all need step back. We are family. Family should not fight like this. We became strangers at Thanksgiving. This call does not change that. Her voice shifted sweeter, almost pleading, trying to apologize. Can we have dinner talk properly? Your apology motivated by money? Not remorse. Answer is no. You are being unreasonable. Ethan is your only child, and he showed me exactly what that means to him. Goodbye. Lila, I hung up. She called back immediately. I declined. She called 3 more times that evening. I blocked her number. Daniel filed counter-motion late February. Documentation overwhelming. 45 years, federal employment. Annual competency reviews, medical records. Written analysis of Ethan behavior from Thanksgiving onward. Witness statements from colleagues about professional capability. Estate planning process itself demonstrates competence. Daniel wrote in filing. Mr. Yates researched Washington law, consulted legal professionals, made informed decisions over multiple weeks, executed documents properly. These not actions of someone with diminished capacity. Hearing scheduled late February. I dressed in work suit, professional, appropriate for senior federal auditor. Daniel met me outside courtroom. Stay calm. Answer questions directly. Show them exactly who you are. He advised. Courtroom smaller than expected. Ethan sat at plaintiff table with attorney from Peterson and Associates. Woman in 40s. Expensive suit. Practiced confidence. Lila sat in gallery behind them. Charles not present. Judge was woman in 60s. Judge Margaret Taylor, according to nameplate. Ethan attorney presented first. Claimed William's sudden disinheritance indicated emotional disturbance. Argued no rational parent would cut off only child without cause. Suggested I had been influenced or coerced, though could not identify by whom. Daniel countered with documentation. Past employment records to judge. Security clearance renewal requiring psychological screening. Annual physicals. Performance reviews. Handwritten notes from Thanksgiving dated and detailed. Mr. Yates is senior federal auditor. Daniel stated. Passed rigorous background check 7 months ago. Documented reasoning clearly. Planned estate change methodically over months. Consulting professionals. Making informed decisions. This textbook competence. Judge Taylor reviewed materials. Then looked at me. Mr. Yates, you changed will after 45 years. Can you explain decision? I met her eyes. Spoke clearly. Yes, Your Honor. Kept financial status private to teach son independence. At Thanksgiving, learned how he treats people he believes have nothing. His character, when tested, found wanting. Seems harsh response to single dinner. Not single dinner. Your Honor. 9 years taking without gratitude. Culminating an evening where he showed true values. I documented everything. She studied me long moment. You appear quite competent to me, Mr. Yates. Thank you. She reviewed Daniel's submissions again. Then Ethan attorney filings. Courtroom silent except rustling paper. Finally, she looked up. Reviewed evidence. Mr. Yates clearly competent. Documented reasoning. Washington law permits disinheritance. Will stands as executed. Challenge dismissed. Ethan face crumbled. Attorney gathered papers quickly. Professionally masking defeat. Lila sat frozen in gallery. Outside courthouse. Ethan called across lobby. Dad, please just talk to me. 5 minutes. All I ask. I paused 1 second. Let him see me. Hear him. Acknowledge presence. Then I continued walking. Daniel fell beside me, creating physical barrier. In car. I sat moment before starting engine. Legal challenge failed. Charles' money bought nothing but expensive fees and public documentation of Ethan failure. I drove back to apartment. Victory felt appropriate, not celebratory. System confirmed what I knew. Decision sound. Reasoning valid. Actions legal. But I knew they would not stop completely. We'll secure now. Court tested and approved. That left one remaining asset. House where Ethan and Lila lived rent-free. I suspected that would be next battlefield. I was ready. 3 weeks passed after court victory. I returned to work. Completed quarterly audit reports. Maintained routine, then Tuesday evening, late March. I called Daniel Reed. Want to reclaim my house. Daniel quiet moment. Property where Ethan lives. Property I own. Where Ethan lived without lease or payment 9 years. Washington law requires 60-day notice for no-cause termination of tenancy. Need to deliver written notice, document delivery, then file eviction, if not vacate voluntarily. Draft notice. Daniel prepared document that week. Formal, legally precise. Notice to terminate tenancy, effective April 1st. Ethan had 60 days to vacate premises. No cause required under Washington law. Property owner exercising rights. On April 1st, I drove to my house at 10:30 morning. Ethan Accord gone. He would be at work. Lila Audi sat in driveway. I knocked on my own front door. Lila answered. Confusion crossing face. William, what are you delivering legal notice? I handed envelope. 60 days to vacate. You and Ethan need to be out by June 1st. She stared at envelope. Vacate, this is Ethan house. This is my house. Bought 25 years ago. Paid off 13th years ago. Ethan lived here rent-free by my permission, which I now withdraw. Her face went white. You cannot just kick us out. We have rights. You have 60 days. Read notice. Explains everything. I turned to leave. You making mistake. Her voice rose. Charles will fight this. I looked back. Charles' money could not overturn will. Will not stop property owner reclaiming own house. June 1st be out. I walked to car. Photographed house and visit. Noted time and date. Documentation. Daniel filed forcible entry and detainer action mid-April exactly as required when Ethan and Lila did not respond to notice. Court scheduled hearing mid-May. Hearing procedural, quick. I presented property deed showing sole ownership. Showed documentation Ethan never paid rent. No lease. Occupied by verbal permission only. Presented notice to vacate delivered April 1st. Ethan new attorney. Different firm. Less expensive than Peterson and Associates. Argued 9 years occupancy created some tenancy right. Judge Thompson rejected immediately. No lease, no rent, no documentation of rental agreement. This permissive occupancy which owner can terminate. 60-day notice proper. Ordering tenants vacate by June 1st or face forcible removal. Ethan sat rigid in seat. Lila not present. Probably could not face another courtroom defeat. Outside. Ethan approached me in parking lot. Where we supposed to go, I unlocked car door. Not my concern. We cannot afford first and last month rent on decent place, not with down payment gone to Charles' lawyers. You had 9 years free housing to save money. You saved nothing. Those your choices. Ethan, live with them. You enjoying this. Watching us suffer, I met his eyes, not enjoying it, implementing it. There is difference. I drove away. In rear view, Ethan stood in parking lot, defeated. Days crawled toward June 1st. I heard through indirect channels. Colleague knew someone who knew Lila's sister, that they found cramped 3-bedroom apartment in less desirable neighborhood. Rent $2,800 monthly. No down payment assistance from Charles anymore. Apparently he tired of funding legal losses. June 1st arrived on Sunday. I drove to house at noon. Moving truck sat in driveway nearly empty. Ethan and Lila carrying last boxes out. I parked on street. Waited. Let them see me watching. Let them understand this real. Final enforced. Moving truck departed at 2:30. Ethan Accord followed. Lila Audi left minutes later. I waited another hour. Then approached house. Front door unlocked. Inside. House empty except scuff marks on floors. Nail holes in walls. Ghost impressions of furniture on carpet. They taken everything. Left nothing. I walked through each room. Bedroom where Ethan slept 9 years. Kitchen where Lila cooked meals in my house without appreciation. Living room where they built life on my generosity while learning to despise me. In master bedroom, I found note on floor. Ethan handwriting. You won. Are you happy now? Ethan. I picked up. Read twice. Put in pocket. I was not happy. Happiness not goal. Justice was goal. Consequences were goal. Teaching free housing and inherited wealth not rights, but privileges withdrawable. I locked all doors. Checked all windows. House secure. Empty. Mine again. My phone buzzed. Text from Daniel. Confirm they out. Property yours. Well done. I stood on front porch. Keys in hand. 9 years free housing ended with court order. Ethan called it cruel. I called it consequences. Somewhere in Seattle, Ethan and Lila unpacking in whatever apartment they could afford on short notice. Charles' money dried up after 2 legal defeats. They would manage on own earnings now. Pay own rent. Build own security without wealthy father-in-law or generous father they learned too late to appreciate. I got in car. Drove back to apartment. House mine again. Inheritance secured. Legal battles over. Ethan had nothing left to take. Nothing left to contest. Nothing left to expect. I spent 22 years teaching him independence. 9 years giving advantages. 3 months showing consequences. Education complete. 3 weeks passed after eviction hearing. June 1st deadline approached. I maintained routine, waiting to see if Ethan and Lila would leave voluntarily or require sheriff enforcement. Then Tuesday evening, late May, apartment buzzer rang. I was not expecting anyone. Yes. Dad. It is me. Ethan's voice came through intercom. Subdued. Can I come up? Please, just 10 minutes? I considered refusing. Pressed button instead. Why? Because need to talk face to face. Not through lawyers. Just us. I paused. Then buzzed him up. Ethan appeared at door, looking diminished. Worn clothing. Tired eyes. Shoulders curved inward. This not man from Thanksgiving. He stood in doorway. Not presuming entry. You have 10 minutes. I stepped aside. He entered slowly. Remained standing near entrance. I crossed arms. Maintained distance. We found apartment. He began. $2,800 month. It is small, but what we can afford now. Problem is, not ready until mid-June. Need 2 more weeks. You had 60 days. You chose wait until deadline approached. We try and find something better. Everything costs more than expected. Legal fees from fighting you. He looked at hands. Wiped out savings. Those your choices. Poor financial planning does not obligate me extend deadlines. Ethan nodded slowly. Charles gave us 60,000, but will not give more. Furious about court losses. Said you too stubborn. We on our own now. I allowed thin smile. He tried buy solution. When failed, withdrew support. Sounds familiar. Conditional assistance based on success. How does it feel being on receiving endpoint taken? Ethan voice quiet. What about Lila? How's she handling this? Expression darkened. Blames me for everything. Says I should have known you had money. That I should have fixed this. Calls me failure daily. Those same words she used about me at Thanksgiving. You said nothing then. Now understand what silence costs. I do. Too late, but I do. We stood in silence. Outside window, Seattle evening traffic hummed. Ethan shifted weight. Exhausted. Not asking forgiveness, he said finally. Not asking change will. Asking for 2 weeks. That is all. Just 14 more days. I gave you 9 years. That is 4,380 days free housing. Asking for 14 more. Answer is no. Dad, please. Court order says June 1st. Deadline stands. Be out by then or sheriff enforces it. Conversation over. Ethan looked at me directly first time. Came here knowing you probably say no. Came anyway because had to try. Not for house or money. Understand those gone. Just to see if anything left between us worth saving. Thanksgiving answered that question. He nodded. Moved toward door. Hand rested on knob. For what it is worth. I'm sorry. Not about losing money. About disappointing you. If you shown this awareness at Thanksgiving, none this would have happened. I know. But I did not. And now living with it. Yes, you are. Goodbye. Ethan. He left without another word. I stood at closed door, listening footsteps fade down hallway, then walked to window, watched him emerge onto street below. Get into Accord. He sat there long moment before starting engine. I closed curtain. Over next few days, I drove past house occasionally, not stalking, verifying, parked block away, observed 10 minutes, noted progress. Rental truck Wednesday, boxes loaded Thursday, furniture carried out Friday. On May 30th, I watched from car as Ethan and Lila made final trips. Lila slammed trunk repeatedly, movements sharp with anger. Ethan moved mechanically, carrying boxes without expression. They did not see me watching. By evening, truck gone. May 31st, phone buzzed. Text from Ethan. We out. House empty. Keys on kitchen counter. I typed single word. Acknowledged. No response came. None needed. June 1st arrived Sunday. I drove to house at noon. Let myself in with original key. Keys Ethan mentioned lay on kitchen counter. 3 copies tagged hardware store label. I walked through empty rooms, scuff marks on floors, nail holes in walls, carpet indentations where furniture stood 9 years, ghost architecture of their life in my space. In master bedroom, found something they missed. Small framed photo fallen behind dresser. Ethan and Lila on wedding day 8 years ago. Young, hopeful, certain of future. I picked up, studied moment, set on windowsill. Not my concern anymore. I locked all doors, checked all windows. House secure, empty. Mine again. Outside. Stood on porch, keys in hand. 9 years occupation ended. Ethan texted compliance. Moved out without sheriff enforcement. Left quietly. Education complete. Consequences delivered. Justice achieved. I got in car. Drove back to apartment. Behind me. House stood empty. Waiting for whatever came next. Somewhere in Seattle, Ethan and Lila unpacked in cramped apartment. Adjusted to paying rent. Learned to live without advantages taken for granted. That not my concern either. I spent 22 years teaching Ethan independence. 9 years giving opportunities. 6 months showing consequences. Lesson over. Whether he learned from it, his choice now. Not mine. I parked in apartment garage, rode elevator up, unlocked door, inside. Everything exactly as left it. My space, my peace, my life undisturbed by people who learned value wealth over character. I made dinner, ate at small table, felt something I had not felt since before Thanksgiving. Satisfied, not happy, not triumphant, just finished. Story reached natural conclusion. June passed into July. I returned to full work routine at GAO, completed quarterly audits I managed, prepared reports for congressional oversight. Colleagues noticed nothing different about me. I was same senior auditor for decades. Methodical, thorough, reliable. House stood empty through June while I consulted real estate agent. Market value held steady at $750,000. I listed early July, sold within 4 weeks. Cash buyer, no complications. Closing costs netted $730,000. I never visited house again after June 1st. Agent handled everything. Inspections, repairs, staging, showings. When sale closed late July, I signed documents in Daniel Reed office. Accepted check. Completed transaction without seeing property. Money transferred to account. $730,000 that would never reach Ethan. I decided weeks earlier where it would go. Seattle Education Fund occupied modest office building in Capitol Hill. I scheduled meeting with director, Jennifer Lee, early August. Mr. Yates, thank you for coming. She shook hand warmly. Donation inquiry intriguing. I outlined intention in initial email, now explained fully. Donating proceeds from property sale, $730,000. Want used for college scholarships for students from low-income families. Full 4-year funding for as many students as amount allows. Jennifer's expression shifted from professional interest to genuine surprise. Remarkably generous. May I ask what inspired this belief in giving opportunities to young people who will appreciate them? Students who understand value of education because fought for it. She nodded slowly. Could fund approximately 17 full scholarships with amount. 4 years each. Tuition, books, basic living expenses at Washington public universities. 17 lives changed. That's sufficient. We worked through details over next hour. Fund would manage scholarship selection and distribution. My name remained confidential. No publicity, no recognition. Scholarships awarded based purely on need and merit. Would you like updates on recipients? Jennifer asked. Many donors enjoy seeing impact. No. Trust your judgment selecting deserving students. Beyond that, I do not need to know. She studied me curiously. This unusual. Most major donors want involvement or acknowledgement. I am not most donors. Money has purpose now. That acknowledgement enough. I signed donation paperwork, transferred funds, left with simple receipt. $730,000 redirected from son who wasted advantages to 17 students who earned them. Letter arrived 3 weeks later. Formal acknowledgement from fund. 17 scholarships funded. Names withheld per request. But brief descriptions included first-generation college students, foster care survivors, children of single parents working multiple jobs, young people who understood struggle and valued opportunity. I read letter once, filed in desk drawer, did not look again. September brought routine, work, home, quiet rhythm I preferred. I heard nothing from Ethan. No calls, no texts, no letters. Silence mutual and appropriate. Through indirect channels, I learned fragments. Colleague friend knew Lila's sister. Ethan and Lila in small apartment. Marriage strained but intact. Ethan still worked software job. Lila still managed yoga studio. They paid rent, managed bills, lived without safety nets or wealthy benefactors. They learning what independence actually meant. I felt no satisfaction hearing this. No triumph. Just confirmation consequences real and faced. One afternoon, late September, I sat at desk reviewing audit reports when Marcus stopped by cubicle. William. You seem different lately. More settled. Maybe I looked up from computer. Do I? Yeah. Cannot put finger on it. But whatever bothered you last year seems resolved. Some situations required attention. They've been addressed. He nodded, understanding I would not elaborate. Good for you, man. Life too short carry burdens we do not need. After he left, I considered observation. Was I different? Perhaps I removed toxic relationships, enforced boundaries, ensured resources would serve worthy purposes. Weight of disappointed expectations gone. I returned to audit report. Numbers aligned, expenditures tracked, federal funds properly accounted for. Work I did for 45 years. Work gave life structure and meaning. That evening, I made dinner in small kitchen, ate at small table, watched news briefly, then read financial journals until bedtime. Same routine maintained for decades. But cleaner now, no calls from Ethan asking favors, no performance of poverty to teach lessons, no waiting for character development that never came. Just my life lived on my terms by my values. Story people would tell if anyone told it would be simple. Auditor, 66 years old, made decisions about estate. Those decisions executed legally, upheld by courts, resulted in charitable contributions benefiting deserving youth. Clean, professional, principled. Story Ethan would tell if he told it would be different. But that narrative not mine to control or concern myself with. I gave him 22 years hidden advantages, 9 years free housing, multiple chances demonstrate character. He showed me who he was. I responded accordingly. Scales balanced, accounts settled, audit complete. October arrived with early rain. I walked to work when weather permitted, drove when it did not, maintained routine. House someone else home now. My will filed with Daniel Reed. Legally sound, court tested. 17 students would begin college next fall with full funding. Everything I intended to accomplish was done. I closed laptop one evening, finished day work from home. Outside window, Seattle lights sparkled in damp darkness. Somewhere in this city, my son struggled with consequences he earned. Somewhere else, 17 young people prepared for opportunities given. I felt no need to know more than that. Tomorrow would bring more audits, more reports, more routine. That exactly what I wanted. Story over. Justice done. Rest simply living.